Well, yeehaw! That's right. That was great, yeehaw. And hey, listen, we're starting a brand new series called Rodeo Clowns. Okay, all right. Never thought you'd get to see a rodeo clown preaching a sermon, but today is your lucky day. In fact, right now, if you're like watching alone and you want your significant other to join, you could be like, hey, honey, come check out this clown that's preaching. And it wouldn't even be disparaging. It would just be true. But this message series called Rodeo Clowns is taking a look at some secondary characters in the Old Testament. So a lot of times we look at those Old Testament Bible heroes, but we forget that God used other people to come alongside of them and to help them out. And that's the thing about heroes. Every hero needs help. Every hero needs help. So even if maybe right now you're like the hero of your own story, you need some help. And so maybe God's going to provide somebody to come alongside of you. Or maybe there's someone in your life that needs some help. And God may lead you to come alongside them. And so as we unpack the way God works and look at this, we have a really cool memory verse. It's found in Proverbs chapter 17, verse 17. And I'd love for you to read it out loud with all of us and hear our voices saying God's words together. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. Now, this is the beauty of what God does. A friend loves at all times, and a brother is born for a time of adversity. Rodeo clowns. Rodeo clowns are really the unsung heroes of the rodeo. And maybe you've never experienced a rodeo before, but a rodeo clown is not just there for entertainment. The rodeo clown actually serves a very important purpose. The rodeo clown is there to protect the bull rider after the bull has bucked the rider off of him. And so when the rider is now off the back of the bull and the bull is like, aha, gotcha, and the bull is coming for the rider, the rodeo clown comes out and distracts the bull, leads the bull away so that the rider can escape from danger. And so all of us can find ourselves in these times of adversity, these times of danger, these times of trouble where we need some help. On the flip side of that also, we can see other people when they're in times of danger and when they're in trouble, when they're having adversity, and maybe God might be sending us to help. Now, in the Old Testament, one of our great heroes of our faith and our faith heritage as the family of God, the people of God, is a guy named Moses. So Moses was the guy that God called and spoke to and asked him to go back to Egypt and to lead the Israelites out of Egyptian captivity, which was no small task. This guy, Moses, he was brought up in Pharaoh's household. He was very familiar with the socioeconomic climate of Egypt at that time and the importance of this Israelite slave labor force under the reign of Pharaoh. And so when Moses is out, as a shepherd in the middle of nowhere and he encounters this burning bush, which is just great the way that God chooses to get our attention. He knows Moses is a straight up dude. And when a dude sees fire, a dude has to check fire out. That's just what dudes do. And so here in the middle of nowhere is a burning bush, a bush on fire. It's not being consumed by the fire. Moses is like, bro, I got to check that out. And he heads over to the bush. He gets near the bush, and now the bush is talking. And Moses is like, whoa, this is a sick bush. And he's like, who are you, bush? Like, what's going on? The bush is like, listen, Moses, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go back to Egypt, the place where you came from, and I want you to tell Pharaoh to let my people go. And Moses is like, right, bush, that's kind of crazy. That's probably not going to happen, bush. And the bush is like really persistent, like, no, Moses, I want you to do this. And so Moses is like, okay, bush, but I don't know who you are. Like, I don't know your name. I didn't catch your name, bush. And the bush is like, this is what you're to say to the Israelites. I am has sent me to you. And so in this moment, this is God revealing himself to the world. And the way God is going to do that is he's going to create a people for himself in the Israelites that he will deliver and set free. Because this is who our God is. Our God is a rescuer. Our God is a redeemer and a deliverer. And from the very beginning, this is what he's doing. But he uses people. This is where it gets really interesting. God calls people and uses them, and he doesn't always call the people you would think he would call. Like Moses has fled Egypt. He's on the run because he's wanted for murder. And now this bush is telling him to go back, and the bush is now saying, okay, this is my name. My name is I am. And this word I am, it's the Hebrew word Yahweh, or just really, Yah, because there were no vowels in it. Just Yah. Try that with me. You go, Yah. And this is what God was saying. The bush was saying, I'm the very breath I am the life giver, the life force. In fact, you don't get to name me. I just am because he was the creator and he was before everything. And so here on this earth, we tend to take dominion and authority of whatever we name. Like when you name something, you're then responsible for it. Even in the creation story, if you go back to Genesis, when God makes all the animals and everything else, and then he makes man, he brings man alongside of him and says, okay, I want you to share in creation with me, and you're going to have dominion and authority, so name everything. And so this is what people are kind of used to doing. We name things. But in this sense, in this case, the bush is God, and God is saying, you don't get to name me. You don't get to define me. I just am. And this is really a cool moment because now Moses is like, whoa, okay, I guess I have to go. And so what happens is Moses is going to go back, but on his way, he really starts to realize, wait, he's completely and totally inadequate for the job at hand. And so what we understand is that no one does anything great alone. We just don't. We're not designed or built for aloneness to begin with. There's no way to have like a great life, meaning a full life and an abundant life, like the life Jesus intends for us, and to do that alone. And I know sometimes we say, well, God is all I need. And maybe we can find some truth in that and make an argument for it by saying, well, everything that I need is provided by God, so ultimately God is all I need. Sure. But just watch it. Because the reality is we were created to be in relationships, not only with God, but with other people. And no one does anything great alone. And sometimes what happens is when the greatness of our lives, we can't find it. We can't connect the dots into what God is really calling us to. And our lives feel mundane and empty, and there's no joy in them. There's no passion. There's no reason to get out of bed. It might be a symptom of going at it alone. And no one does anything great alone. And so Moses has a conversation with God in Exodus chapter 4, verse 10. It says, Moses said to the Lord, pardon your servant, Lord. I have never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have spoken to your servant. I am slow of speech and tongue. And the Lord said to him, who gave human beings their mouths, and who makes them deaf or mute? Who gives them sight or makes them blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak and will teach you what to say. But Moses said, pardon your servant, Lord. Please send someone else. Then the Lord's anger burned against Moses, and he said, what about your brother Aaron, the Levite? I know he can speak well. He is already on his way to meet you, and he will be glad to see you. And this exchange with God, I think, is really pretty cool. Moses is like, hold up, wait a second. I do love that this choice of word, like to be eloquent of speech, feels like it may have been a little tough to say. I'm not sure exactly what Moses' issues with speaking were, but maybe even stumbled it over that a little bit. Pardon me, Lord, I'm not eloquent of speech. I mean, maybe he was really laying it on thick. Like, come on, Lord, you don't know who you called. You want me to go to Israel and like lead 1 million people out, and you want me to speak to Pharaoh and plead your case, and you want me to like lead a whole group of people? Like, I'm not good at this. I'm the wrong guy. Please, Lord, send someone else. And what's so great about God is, I mean, God says God's anger burned against Moses, and he was like, what about Aaron, your brother? Which is just great. I wonder if Moses was like, oh, dude, not him. Really, my brother? Okay. I was like hoping for somebody good. But the Lord's like, he's already on his way, and he speaks well. Or maybe Moses was like, you gotta be kidding me. Everybody knows my brother speaks well. He's everybody's favorite. Everybody loves Aaron. And Moses they can't stand. I got run out of Egypt. I had to leave. And now, okay, great. Now I'm supposed to lead these people, but now I'm going to have Aaron come alongside of me, and he's going to be the one that speaks. And you can just kind of imagine that maybe as we think about our dynamics, I don't want to project them onto Moses or onto Aaron or onto God, but I think in our relationships and the way that we are trying to navigate life and do that with other people, there's all kinds of things that trip us up along the way. And those things that trip us up along the way, a lot of times cause us to disengage relationally, and instead of engaging relationally to experience life and the real life that God has for us, and no one does anything great alone. And so I love God's sovereignty, and according to what God was doing, he's like, it's like God's like, I already covered. He's already on his way to meet you. Before you even complained about this, I'd already called Aaron to come alongside and do this with you. And so everyone needs both God and people. No one does anything great alone. And the reality is everyone needs God and people. And so there's this connection with God. That's why at one church we pray for one. It goes like this: God, please give me one person to share your love with. In fact, we don't just talk about it, we actually do it. So would you pray that out loud with me? God, please give me one person to share your love with. Well, when we pray that prayer, we're connecting with God at a real heart level. We're saying, God, what I want more than anything else is I want in on what you're doing, but I also want your love. Not my love, not a love because my love is not enough. I'm like Moses. I'm not eloquent of speech. I'm not good enough. My love will fail. My love will miss the mark. My love will be transactional. My love will have limits. So if I really want to love my spouse, if I really want to love my children, and if I really want to love my neighbor, then God, I want to do it with your love. So please give me one person to share your love with. And so I need you, God. I can't do this on my own. As much as I want to love, I can't do this on my own. It's like what Jesus said, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. But what we usually do, and the way this typically works for us, is we do unto others as we have had done unto us. All these things that we do, and all the pain, and all the hurt, and all the reasons why we would disengage, to guard our own hearts and protect ourselves, and also to protect others from us, comes out of this. We tend to do unto others as we've done to them. But if we connect with God and we receive his love, now we can love others as we have been loved. That's why Jesus said, a new command I give you, as I have loved you, so you must love one another. Which this command is a blessing, not a burden. It's a gift from God. He's saying you must. In other words, you'll be compelled. It's not like this heavy burden, like, oh, I've got to do it. It's like when you have the love of God in you, you're like, yes, I get to do this. I really can love and love like he loves me because I've received his love. But I can't do that on my own. I need God to do that. And then also there needs to be objects of his love moving through me. I need relationships with people. We all do. And so we continue reading in the same passage in Exodus 4, the very next verse, verse 15. It says, you shall speak to him, referring to Moses, you'll speak to Aaron, you shall speak to him and put words in his mouth. I will help both of you speak and will teach you what to do. He will speak to the people for you, and it will be as if he were your mouth and you were God to him. But take his staff in your hand so that you can perform the signs with it. All right, there's a few neat little things that are happening here. God's like, okay, you'll speak to him and put words in his mouth. But then what God says to Moses is, I will help both of you speak. So he's not even like, hey, Moses, you got to figure out what to say to Aaron. God's saying, I'm going to help you with that. Moses, that's our God. Our God is a helper. And I think that's really sweet, just how God says, okay, we're going to do this in community. The great life that God has for us is experienced and expressed in community. We need each other, and we need God, and heroes need help, and helpers need heroes. And it's not necessarily one or the other, but we get to come alongside people, and when a brother or a friend, a brother or sister in Christ, someone who's a part of the family of God, or just another human being, is in trouble, when the bull has finally got them off their back and they're in the ring and the bull is bearing down on them, who is coming? Who will God send? And I just love that. In the rodeo analogy, it's a clown. It's a clown. That's the thing. Sometimes we feel foolish. Like, you know what? No, why would I help? Why would I help them? What kind of idiot gets on the back of a bull to begin with? You ever done this one? Why would I go in there and risk my neck to help this person who was dumb enough to get on the back of a bull? And it can feel so foolish at times. And we might even have other people telling us, hey, it's not safe. I mean, that can even be the framework that we're working off of in this life, where safety becomes the ultimate and the paramount. Like somehow or the other, in the back of our minds, we've thought, you know what? No, living forever and living eternally means that my physical body will never die. That's not true. Every physical body will fade and perish and die. Our eternal life comes outside of these beautiful gifts that God's given us. And there should be wisdom with that, but to step into the ring and to distract the bull and to do what God has called us to help someone who's in trouble. This is a friend. This is a brother. Being right in there with them. And yet, a lot of times we don't want to do it, or we don't want anybody to do it for us. And the main, I think, root cause of that is this word called pride. Pride. I think this whole thought process of saying, you know what, all I need is God, or all I need is myself, or I don't need anybody, that comes from a root of pride. And we can be brought up in that or come by it, but it's certainly a part of the human condition where we think, you know what, no, I can do it alone. Because that's where pride comes from, this idea that says, I've got it. I can do it alone. Like, hey, do you need anything? No, I'm all set. No, you're not. They're not all set. We all have needs. We all need help. And we're not designed or meant to do it alone. But when we go alone, then there's a pride that comes from that. And so that we can start to think things like, well, if I can do it alone, whatever it is we think we're doing alone, then why would I help anybody else? And so now we're missing out on really being a part of the family of God and the community that He has for us. Another reason that pride comes is from seeking personal glory. And instead of being obedient to what God is calling us to try to seek some kind of personal glory in this situation, to do something else. And then a third reason that pride comes is from being selfish with resources. That's what's really, I think, pretty cool here is, okay, if Moses had just been a great speaker and a great leader and he didn't, need the Lord and he didn't need Aaron, then he could have gotten a huge head and been like, no, and tried to become like some kind of overbearing, overlord, dictator, ruler guy. But he needs Aaron because he's not good at speaking. And then if Aaron was like, hey, that's my staff, the miracle-working staff, it's my staff. I should get to wield the miracle-working staff. That should be in my hands. Why does Moses get to use the miracle-working staff? And in this particular story, here are those kind of examples. But what about in your story? Where have you gotten possessive and selfish with resources? Where have you seen that happen? Where you needed some help and someone had the ability to help, but they became selfish or possessive with resources. And as we wrestle through that, there is such a beautiful thing that God can do as He calls us out of our comfort zones into oftentimes a place of discomfort where we're saying, okay, well, wait, there's something much bigger at play here. I don't need to have a scarcity mindset. I don't have to protect all this, but rather I can trust God. I can receive help when I need help, but then also I can give help. I can do unto others as I would have them do unto me, not do unto others as they have done to me. And by the way, Aaron, who in this particular message is what we're referring to as our rodeo clown, and we're celebrating the way God used Aaron in Moses' life. Make no mistake about it, though, Aaron was a disaster on his own. That's the thing about a rodeo clown out of context is a bit of a disaster. Like if I'm not wearing this home tonight, no matter how much Summer asks me to, I'm not doing it. Because you pull up next to this and you see it on the road, it's like, what is that? When this day is over, I'm not doing that. I will change clothes before I'm done. And, in the mall, that's just, now you need to, pull the children in tighter and maybe get security over to do something about this craziness. And in Aaron's particular case, when Moses went up on the mountain like to get the 10 Commandments from God. He left Aaron in charge. And in this period of time while Aaron was in charge, it was like everybody started kind of revolting. They're like, hey, Moses has been gone a long time, and maybe something bad's happened to him. And here we are out in the middle of the wilderness, and we don't have a God to protect us. And, he left you in charge, Aaron. And so, Aaron, you got to do something. And what we think you should do is we think you should make us like a fertility god. And so in Exodus, it was referred to as the golden calf, but it was probably really a golden bull, a fertility god, which is, that's why like when Moses is coming down from the mountain, he's like, what's that sound? Is that the sound of revelry? And it was like, whoa, hey, it was like this big fertility god worship party thing that was going on. I mean, in that moment, they broke like 5 of the 10 commandments Moses had come down with. That's why when Moses got down there, he smashes them. He's like, you guys already broke them. And Aaron's the guy that he left in charge. And so Aaron needs Moses, and Moses needs Aaron. And so we all need God, and we need people. And as we kind of process through this and evaluate our own lives, I would encourage you and remind you someone needs your support. Maybe you need support right now, and that's certainly understandable. But even in the midst of needing support and help, sometimes we can ask God, who can I support and help? And then as we do that, and we get into the flow of what God is doing, then we're able to receive and experience that coming our way as well. If we go a little bit further in the book of Exodus chapter 17, the Israelite people, before they've entered the promised land, are going to be attacked. And it says in verse 8, the Amalekites came and attacked the Israelites at Rephidim. And Moses said to Joshua, choose some of your men and go to fight the Amalekites. Tomorrow I will stand on top of the hill with the staff of God in my hands. So Joshua fought the Amalekites as Moses had ordered. And Moses, Aaron, and Hur went to the top of the hill. As long as Moses held up his hands, the Israelites were winning. But whenever he lowered his hands, the Amalekites were winning. When Moses' hands grew tired, they took a stone and put it under him, and he sat on it. Aaron and Hur then held up his hands, one on one side, one on the other, so that his hands were made steady till sunset. So Joshua overcame the Amalekite army with the sword. And this is just a really beautiful picture of what God can do. Here were these Israelite slaves. They'd been enslaved for quite some time, coming out of Egypt. Now they're in the wilderness, and they're getting attacked by an army. They're not equipped. They're not prepared. Moses has never fought in a battle or led an army before. And so he says to Joshua, who will be the successor after Moses, hey, get some men, go down there and fight. And Moses took the staff, and he went up on the hill, and he held it up. And he's holding it up for the family of God and the people of God, and he's holding this thing. But the battle's going on, and Moses is getting tired. And Aaron doesn't stay down at the bottom. Aaron instead goes up on the hill with him. And doesn't run over and say, let me take over for you, Moses. Tag me in. I got this, Moses. This was Moses' thing. This was what God had called Moses to. And so instead, Aaron ran over there, and him and his buddy Hur, and maybe he recruited somebody, which is always a great thing. Right? If we're not going to do this alone, then let's get somebody else to go help us. Let's get somebody else involved. Let's invite other people into the process. They get over there, and they get a stone up under him so Moses can sit down on the stone and lean against that. And then when his arms kept falling down, they got on either side of him, which, by the way, was a dirty job. If you just think about it, all day long, Moses has hands up, and they're getting deep in these pits. One on either side. Like their heads are in there, like to prop up the arms with their heads and to help him keep his hands up. And that's the thing. Sometimes when we come along to support other people, it's hard, and it's not easy, and it stinks. But when God's in it, it's worth it. And so I'd love for you to really prayerfully ask God as we remember all that he's done for us. And that's the real beauty of what Jesus says to us, to do unto others as he has done unto us. To do unto others what we would have them do unto us. But we have the example here. Jesus has done this for us. And in our greatest need, he took our sin all the things we've done and all the things done to us. And he took care of it on the cross once and for all. And it was buried with him in the tomb. And on the third day, he rose again. And so because of that, we can now come alongside others who are struggling. And as God directs and leads, we can be a support to them. And so who is it? Who is it that God may be leading you to support? Who is it that God may be leading you to encourage? Is it that God may be leading you to go in and help rescue or support, or to use some of the resources that he's entrusted to you with? As we remember what God has done for us and the generosity that he's poured out for us, will you ask him, God, show me how you'll use me to be a blessing like that to others? God, show me how you'll use me to be a blessing like that to others when I try it. God, show me how you'll use me to be a blessing like that for others. Jesus took bread and he broke it and he offered it to his disciples. And he gave them this beautiful picture and this incredible invitation. He said, "This is my body, which is given for you." Jesus laid down his very body for you. And we need him. No matter who you are, no matter what you've done, no matter what's been done to you, we need him. And he is offering himself to you. Will you say yes to Jesus and remember what he's done and eat? And Jesus took the cup. And he explained that this cup is a reminder of a new relational connection, where the old is gone and the new has come. And when we drink from this cup, we're saying yes to him and being part of his family and his kingdom. We have a new identity in him. And so we drink not just to any king, but to the King of Kings. So if you're saying yes to Jesus, then we acknowledge him as king, to the king. I'm going to pray a blessing over you, and then I hope you'll spend some time listening to God and hear what he has to say to you. Father, thank you for sending us your son, Jesus. And then, Lord, also for inviting us to be a part of what you're doing. Father, show us who you're calling us to come alongside of and support and encourage. And help us to hear, and we ask for that in Jesus' name.